Hey, here we are going live. Now, my little brief introduction for the people who only see this after it's recorded live, because waiting for a few people to actually join the live stream. So, I was all set to do a pre-recorded video, being particularly silly. I had some specific ideas of what to do, and then events happened. The terrorist attack on the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, and it's depressing as hell, and just being frivolous and silly doesn't seem quite right. But I thought what might be therapeutic for me, and maybe for a few people who join me, is, just having a talk. Because, Jesus, the world really seems fucked sometimes, doesn't it? And hello, Celtic King. Nice to see you. So yeah, I'm going to do a live stream, assuming my live connection stays. Oh, everyone's saying hello, Mr. Stephen, Nathan. I'm going fine. It's always a little bit overwhelming when something on this scale of nasty happens. Hi, Luke. I can sometimes be quite cynical. People seem to want to have some part in bad events, some sort of, disaster porn type thing. Everyone, wants to talk about how they feel about something they don't necessarily have any relationship to, but it's usually when something feels like it could happen to you or to people or people you care about. And so yes, in war zones far worse things happen, and in many countries civilians suffer far worse things on an almost daily basis. But for us in our comfortable worlds in the West, it's very hard to identify with that, a thing happening to a country that seems to be torn apart by war, because, well, my world's not torn apart by war, so it doesn't seem like a thing that's going to affect me. But when it's something that could easily affect you, everyone goes to public events, whether it be concerts or sporting events, other major public events, and an attack that deliberately targeted young people, who we all like to think are innocent. It's no accident that was the target, like not a sporting event that was full of adults, because the people behind this want to cause the maximum distress, the maximum outrage. They want the maximum negative response afterwards. What's behind me? Hair? What? I've got fairy lights up, or party lights outside. They might be visible on the feed. Or is that? Oh, sorry. That's hair, actually. You're saying that's hair. Oh, Connor, watched for 10 years. Thank you. I'm very appreciative of support. I don't always remember what's behind me. That is actually a mullet wig I wore to a party on the weekend to completely change the topic. Or am I completely changing the topic? Because when stuff happens, at an area where I expect things to not be violent, it has a jarring effect. Kind of like the Sandy Hook shooting in America, where all the fucking little kids got shot. You can get really blasé about mass shootings in America because they seem to happen so often. But when someone shoots up a bunch of little kids, that feels like about as bad as it gets. And it's just because, these little kids just went off to school. And that is not something you expect to happen. It even feels worse than things like Columbine, that was high school kids, as awful as that was. When it's little kids being slaughtered, it's so hard to deal with. And people get overly emotional, I think, because those kids weren't in a violent setting. The kids themselves weren't violent. And the worst imaginable thing happens. And it's really jarring. Even, down to an individual case. There was a murder in Melbourne a couple of years ago. A woman called Jill Meager, I think her name was. She was attacked and murdered by a fucking psychopath when she was walking home from a party at night. And she wasn't far from her home. And yeah, sorry if everything's really dark, Abigail. I'll probably try and lighten up in a while. Just sitting here. But people got more upset about this woman being murdered than they do, for instance, if a sex worker is murdered. And I have a lot of friends who are sex workers and supportive of sex workers. And so you need to see everyone as a person. And I agree, but I'm also a bit pragmatic about how people are. The more people identify with a given situation, the more affected they are by it. And while any decent person will be upset at someone being murdered, no matter who they are, when it seems like this is a literal, this could happen to me, it touches home more often. I mean, soldiers being killed in a war zone is bad. Civilians being killed in a war zone is bad. But when you're not in a war zone, it's that much harder to identify with that and feel the impact. Bunch of kids being bombed at a pop concert, that is so close to home for virtually everyone that the reaction is more out of scale. And yes, there's a comment post there about, the actual occupation of countries in the Middle East and bombing and stuff creates more problems than it solves. And a lot of people don't seem to understand cause and effect. And we get a lot of people saying awful, extreme things in response to this. And is well, you are kind of glossing over not just the bombings of civilians in other parts of the world, but the thousands who die from starvation because of economic sanctions, which are apparently more humane than bombs, or the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of refugees that are the direct result of the foreign policy of major governments of the West. There's cause and effect. These things aren't happening in a vacuum. And a lot of people seem willfully ignorant over what's going on. And also it's a lot of people saying, oh, how could they target children? This is the worst way. Yeah, these are horrible, awful, despicable people, but it's done with intent. And the intent, and you might think, well, why did they do it? Now you can, bomb the shit out of them and no one's going to worry. They're going to say, well, good, they deserved it. People seem to be willfully ignorant of the motivations of groups like, ISIS, Daesh, whatever you want to call them. They have, although I don't know why people are ignorant, because these guys explicitly say what they want. They want global war of Islam versus everyone else. They are this tiny, tiny, tiny minority, and they are deranged enough to think a global war is a good thing, and because they've got this religious delusion that they're going to win it. So the viciousness and the nastiness that some people in the West react with to terrorist activity is really counterproductive. So, Thick Bits, you got a bit of a bee in your bonnet, don't you? Yes. So, hey, so that sort of, okay, you need to calm down, Sonny Jim. You're in timeout. I haven't done that for a little while. That was very interesting. I am drinking. Okay, I'm going to change topic. I think that was enough. I need to vomit all that stuff out and get it out of my system. I need to lighten things up and actually be a distraction. What am I drinking? This stuff. This. Look for the next moral panic to be this. I think someone told me about this at some time. Little Fat Lamb, they make a range of these drinks, and I saw it in a bottle shop on the weekend, and I thought I'd try it, and it doesn't taste like alcohol, I'll tell you that for free. This is a lemon flavoured one. They do an apple and a pear one. Not really cider, it's some spirit. Thank you, Dan. I was trying to be calm and rational because I think getting worked up is the wrong thing. I don't know. Okay, this is probably Australian. Where's it from? Yes, it's Australian. I don't know if it's anywhere else. But I saw it. Okay, so this funny stubby bottle is 1.25 litres and it's 8% alcohol, which is roughly twice the average beer or cider. And this 1.25 litre bottle of it was the same price as like a 500ml bottle of cider. So this is basically 4 times the alcohol, 4 times the standard drinks for the same price. So when the kids get onto this, the teenagers and their parties, because it doesn't taste like alcohol, well, it does a little bit, there's a slightly brewed taste to it. Man, got to be a massive moral panic on that. Drinking it while spinning a fidget spinner, take your eye out. Well, Connor, have you not heard about the bombing in Manchester? There's over 20 fatalities. So it's very ugly. Very, very, very ugly. Yes. Talk about the alcohol. I'm going to talk about the alcohol. It's not bad at all. You've seen that in Albury. See, I think someone told me, Joe, what people do in the name of God is really disturbing. There is nothing more dangerous than a righteous person with a cause. See, evil, cynical bastards like me aren't really gonna hassle you unless you do something to really deserve it. But a person who regards themselves as righteous with a noble cause will do terrible, terrible, terrible things. So, yes. And it's not just religion. Religion is the most noticeable. But any sort of political or social view where someone's thoroughly convinced of their rightness can give them license to do terrible things. I mean, the Nazis convinced themselves and convinced people that the Jewish threat was real, that the Jews were literally going to destroy their country, that Jews poisoned wells, that Jews had weird sacrifices of good German children they abducted. People believed this shit was real, and so their righteous cause, the eradication of the Jews, the final solution, made perfect sense to them, and they were right to do it. Literally marching millions of people to their death some of the death camps like Treblinka, they were killing hundreds of people a day. That was humans doing that to other humans because they were absolutely sure their cause was righteous. And you don't need religion to do that. Ugh, Dan, I did not specifically see what Katie Hopkins said. I was made aware that she said something awful because she's awful. She actually used the words final solution, did we? Well, I guess it's time for the Hitler-loving Nazis to stop pretending. These nationalist groups around the world who literally worship Hitler, either the ones that are overt about it or the ones that try to hide it. I mean, like, we had this idiot in Australia, one of the nationalist racist groups who tries to say he's completely reasonable, but he talks about what a great bloke Hitler was. Kids should have to read Mein Kampf at school, have a picture of Hitler on the wall, not the Queen. These people are sick and wrong. They're certainly no better than the people who launch terrorist attacks, because it's that mentality that actually gives the terrorists their fuel. Keiko. Oh, Keiko's last smile. Hello. I always remember, wrote a couple songs for you. I always like people who write songs for me. Yes, it will be interesting, this effect on the general election. It's very hard to know, even before this, what was going to happen in the general election. As an outside observer, the English political scene was quite fascinating because you had the rank and file of the Labour Party who got to vote for the leader of the Labour Party, overwhelmingly supporting Jeremy Corbyn, while interestingly, an enormous chunk of sitting Labour members don't like Jeremy Corbyn. He's a radical, lefty, crazy, loony, socialist, communist weirdo. And these are all people who are all, acolytes of Tony Blair, who's just Tory light. And so actually having someone who's espousing radical left ideology compared to Tony Blair scares them. And the level of denial those people and those members of the Labour Party had about Corbyn's popularity blew my mind. Like, he had to win 2 different votes to stay leader. And the people opposing him seemed really out of touch with what the rank and file actually want. Personally, I don't think Corbyn is particularly radical. He's just an old school lefty. I don't find him particularly radical. He's certainly no more radical on the left side of things than Theresa May is on the right. So, yeah, it is what it is. So it'll be very interesting. And of course, it always seems like politicians, particularly on the right, want to exploit terrorist attacks for their ends. What can Australia do for Middle East peace? You want to... Okay, that faded. See, we should have a segment of It's a Knockout. Well, possibly one of the more innovative Australians looking at ways to promote Middle East peace was a musician. My brain has now gone blank. Tim, he's got the same last name as a Conservative politician. He's got long, sort of shaggy, curly hair, did the music for the Matilda stage show. Oh God, someone help me. Who am I thinking of? He does musical comedy. I keep thinking Tim Winton. It's not Tim Winton. Tim Winton's a novelist. Tim Minchin. Thank you, Dan Bull. Yes. And Keiko. Tim Minchin. Yes. That's who I was trying to think of. He has done, because he's Jewish, or he was brought up Jewish. He may not consider himself religious. And one of his many songs, he was talking about the Middle East problem and how people say the Jews and Muslims have nothing in common, they can't possibly come together. And he points out in the song, well, they both consider pork unclean, and they don't, pigs are unclean and they don't eat the meat of pigs. And he's just got this great line in the song where he goes, well, if you don't eat pigs and we don't eat pigs, why not eat pigs together? It's a starting point. It's don't say there's no common ground, because there's some common ground. The not eating pigs thing. So I live in the whole don't eat pigs thing. For the last 10 years or more, I've lived in the very Jewish part of Melbourne, and you get people who were observant to different degrees. Like in my old neighbourhood, a lot of really Orthodox people were there, and they were all dressed the same and whatnot. And where I moved to, there's two cafes near each other, both run by Jewish people. They have a lot of traditional Jewish stuff on their menu. One of them's more Jewish than the other, because one of them does actually serve bacon, like you can get bacon on a burger or in a sandwich. The other one doesn't. The other one also closed for a week over Passover, so they're pretty serious about it, and they don't serve bacon. So their version of a BLT, which is traditionally a bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich, is actually brisket, lettuce and tomato. And I haven't tried that yet. I want to see if they're promoting crispy brisket as a substitute for bacon. I want to try it out, because I don't mind brisket. But I haven't gone there yet. Trying to save for a house, so I can't go and eat avocado on toast. We all know that. Look, personally, I would most definitely say voting Labour in the UK. Just in the comment about you'd like someone other than Corbyn, but you'll vote for him. Look, I have a very big problem with the Tories' policies of taking apart the social structure, trying to kill the National Health Service in the UK, which is not flawless, but I think is broadly a good thing, defunding the poorer schools and screwing over any sort of housing development for public housing. I just disagree with the social policies of the Tories. See, Joe, will I agree with you about the Australian alternative, Bill Shorten? I don't believe he deserves to get to be Prime Minister. I don't think he deserved to be leader, because he did his role in offing both of the previous Prime Ministers. I think he didn't deserve to be rewarded after that. But he just fell into the role, and yeah, I'd probably go Albo too. RC, he's an interesting old school sort of lefty. But yeah, Shorten just kind of fell into the role, and if he ever leads the Labor Party to a victory, it's going to be more that his policy is, well, I'm not the Liberal Party, rather than he is anything. And I think that's quite weak. So I am not a fan of Shorten's at all. But I'm an active opponent of the Liberal Party policies. As much as Tony Abbott gave me an enormous amount of material that I really enjoyed hacking on every stupid thing he did, and he would do a couple new stupid things every week. I mean, nothing like Donald Trump. He's an amateur compared to Donald Trump. But as much as I enjoyed having him there for the material, really didn't like what he was doing to the social and economic fabric of Australia. And yeah, and Turnbull, while having this promise of, look, ooh, I'm not Tony Abbott, you must like me. And yet he's turned out to be a spineless, useless prick. Oh, are you in the background? It's always Star Trek in the background. Mrs. Angry and her son are watching Star Trek in the next room. And it's not that I dislike Star Trek, but I just thought I'd take the opportunity while they're busy. I think they're watching Voyager at the moment. They were when I was in there, but they've started another episode. I think it's Voyager, because they watch the Star Trek in the chronology of the Star Trek universe. So when they decided to start doing it, they didn't start with the original series. They started with the most recent series, which was Enterprise, because that occurred chronologically before the original series. So they watched Enterprise, then the original series, then the original series movies, then Next Generation, and then at a point towards the Next Generation it crosses over with Deep Space Nine, and then Deep Space Nine crosses over with Voyager chronologically. And they have a site where they track that. Malcolm Gladwell did a podcast about Julia Gillard. That's interesting. Malcolm Gladwell raises some interesting points. I mean, he gets criticised by a lot of people. Some people said, the plural of anecdote is not data. He tells stories and extrapolates from them. And some people think that's not very scientific and not very reliable. But I think he at least poses some interesting thought experiments and questions. I think if you took everything Malcolm Gladwell wrote at face value and said, this is absolutely true, you're in awkward territory. But if you take them as thought experiments, one more thing on my other channel. Oh yeah, our movie soundtrack. Well, again, I would do my movie commentary tracks again, but I not so much want to do them myself. I think that works better as a two-hander. I used to do that with Aidsy. But Aidsy has been so unwell for the last 2 years. He can't really sit there watching a movie for a couple of hours. He'd probably start to fall asleep because one of the byproducts of both his health issues is he doesn't sleep very well. I was like, I think YouTube, yes, make YouTube videos, definitely do that. Sorry, a lot of comments just went by then and I didn't see them all. Try not to do this thing or appear at thinking, well, what does that say? Because I think that's a slightly weird visual, or more than slightly weird. Yes. Yes, I do wish AIDS would be better. That simply isn't going to happen. Like, his body has suffered so much damage. He's never going to be well. It's just a question of if he's going to be manageable. Oh, Dan, that's nice. Look, AD really appreciates everyone's positive wishes, and I always tell him, like, even though he hasn't been physically around for a while, we haven't made a video for a while, I have seen him several times and I talk to him regularly, and I always tell him about everyone sending the love out to them, and he feels it and he really appreciates it. You're all beautiful people. So yes, your positivity actually means a lot to him. So AZ is a big believer in like creating a reality and getting positivity from other people. So he really appreciates it. Yeah, Joe, well, on one hand saying you wish you could work miracles to heal him, he's already had his miracles. Well, that's an interesting point, Joe. Would you pass the misfortune on to someone who deserved it? And that's a tempting thought. See, and okay, like, I'm a big Doctor Who nerd, and there was a line I really liked in one of the Christmas specials that Dave Tennant did, the one that Kylie Minogue was in, where they had the Titanic, the spaceship Titanic was going to crash into Earth, and as is usual for Doctor Who, most of the side characters die. And the Doctor had really identified with the character that Kylie Minogue played, wanted to travel space with him. But she died, and all these good people died, and one complete asshole lived. And another guy's philosophizing with the doctor and saying, yeah, you know, you wouldn't pick him if you got to pick who lived, would you? But then, because that's a big thing with the doctor, why don't good people get saved? Why would a bad person live? But the guy said, if you personally picked who lived and who died, you'd be a monster. No matter how well intentioned you are, if you go around pronouncing, you're not worthy of living, you're not worthy of living, I'm going to have them living, that turns you into a monster. So you're saying you're a fan of old school. Look, I grew up with old school Doctor Who, but I refuse to watch it with rose-coloured glasses. Celtic King, he loves to get postcards and stuff, so if you want to send one to the PO Box, he'd love that. Notice the Aussie Nazis have been more brazen about it. Oh, yeah, actually, that's a point. Some of the universities have had Nazi propaganda posted about, and they're occasionally wearing swastikas in public. This is why when people got upset about that piece of fucking shit in the States getting punched in the face, I'm like, no, fuck that. This isn't political difference. This isn't, oh, there's a person I disagree with. This was a fucking Nazi. This is a person who preaches genocide. This is a person who preaches race war. Punch him in the fucking face and shut him the fuck down. And people go like, oh, you can't just hit people you disagree with. No, you can't. Just because you disagree with someone isn't reason to punch them in the face. If they are preaching genocide, if they are actual Hitler-worshipping Nazis, of course you smack them in the fucking face. You don't let Nazis walk around, for fuck's sake. And all the people are going like, oh, but when you punch the Nazi, you make them sympathetic. If all it takes for you to say you're on the Nazi side is for someone to punch them in the face, you were never fucking far from the Nazi side in the first place, okay? You know, the Nazi sympathizers, okay? You know what happened to them in World War II and after World War II? I'll give you a little hint. What they fucking deserved, okay? You don't sympathize with Nazis and pretend that gives you the moral high ground, okay? You just fucking don't. Oh, deep breath. It's just like, you know, if you let these people have a public platform, you normalize what they're doing. And what they're doing is not normal. What they're doing and saying isn't acceptable. And you have to shut them down. Ugh. You know, Nazism, fascism, extreme nationalism in any form is fucking poison. That's how genocide happens. That's how, you know, ethnic cleansing, as whoever fucking invented that term, when what they mean is genocide. And it's just like, no, when you normalize that sort of speech, that's how, here we go. Yes, you are right. If they're wearing their swastika, you know you're completely justified in punching them. Oh, Keiko, yes, that thing. Jimmy Fallon is widely reviled in a lot of TV and comedy circles now for pandering to Donald Trump. Like, instead of asking him any tough questions, playing games with him and ruffling his hair and not actually dealing with the ugliness that is Trump. And I think he deserves to be made really quite uncomfortable about that. Because there's a certain responsibility. Timothy, you're trying to post links. I don't know that links work on here. I'm not that well versed in how this goes. I mean, I'm just going on. I'm on my phone. I'm on my mobile. I certainly can't follow. Seth Meyers. I'm not even sure if anyone in Australia broadcasts Seth Meyers. I see stuff on the internet. Yeah, it's the whole thing. I honestly think Jimmy Fallon is a minor part of the problem. The bigger problem was all the free publicity that all the news media gave Trump when they treated him like a joke. Like they think, oh, let's put out the latest outrageous thing Trump said. Oh, here's another outrageous thing Trump. It was worked out that Trump had been given billions of dollars of free advertising. Like they gave him more airtime than they gave all the other candidates combined. They created the monster. And the American media is getting a bit better. They're being a bit more consistent with calling bullshit on Trump. But I feel like they're not quite at the stage of pulling up Trump or his apologists and just stopping them and go, no, that was a lie. The thing you just said then, it's not something I disagree with. It's a provable lie. You can't just mouth off lies and expect to get away with it, because it's more important than that. And I don't think they're quite there. They're getting there. They are really getting there, but they're not quite there. Robert's to be on fire. Trump's drowned in a pool of his own shit. Look, I have no idea what's going to happen with Trump. It's just mind-blowing what is happening. Like, he's so disrespectful. He's so obviously criminal. And most of his worst stuff hasn't even... If you think the worst stuff has come out, no, it hasn't. We've sort of seen hints of things and seen rumours of things. But the things that there's evidence for, that if the evidence gets more solid or if it moves to the realm of proof, I think the two most extreme ones, and this is the one that I do believe is true, that the Russians have incriminating video of Trump with sex workers he hired when he was in Moscow in a hotel room. I believe that is true. And I believe it's not impossible that we will one day see the video or videos. God knows what's happening in those. The second one, which is actually way more serious, is Trump and his cronies being bribed to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And excellent point, Keiko. The Brexit argument in the UK, leaving aside one way or the other of whether or not being in the EU is a good or bad thing, the pro-Brexit people lied non-stop. And this, I mean the mouthpieces, not the ordinary people who voted in favour, but the mouthpieces for Brexit lied non-stop. And they were never pulled up on it. They were just allowed to blather and blather and blather and tell ridiculously huge lies, and were never held, and still have not been held accountable for the scale of their lying. And that's a problem. That is a really big problem. But, you know, I don't know. See, here's the thing. There's been a few comments about Trump supporters will never believe anything bad about him. And I think you're right, there is a diehard, and I think the real diehards that will never believe anything bad of Trump, that if and when he finally is taken down, they'll regard it as a conspiracy no matter what. I think that's between 20 and 30% of the voting public in the US. I think, of the adults who vote, I think 20 to 30% of them won't be swayed ever. That goes the other way, like, Obama, who was really charismatic and really popular with his voting base. I think it would go the same way if he had done anything wrong, and he didn't. Like they had to beat up the most ridiculous stuff to get worked up about Obama. But like Trump's old line about shooting someone in the street wouldn't affect his popularity. If Obama had been implicated in something really, really bad, I think 20 to 30% of his voting base would not have been swayed no matter what. And this is the thing I think a lot of people have trouble admitting about politics, is that the same failings exist on both sides of politics, basically. Now, I'm by no stretch of the imagination being thrown out of office, Liberals put federal debt back on the train. I don't know. I don't even know what that question meant, really. I'm definitely not saying Obama's just as bad as Trump. Nobody is as bad on Trump. You want me to put my wig on? That's my mullet wig, because I was going to a theme party on the weekend and I have a mullet wig that I used for some videos. Wait, what? And a flannelette shirt. I was helping another YouTuber. We had a bogan themed video. Mr. Stephen Nigel Farage lied and his racist scum. Just trying to get the wig the right way around. Got to have business up front and party at the back. My mullet wig. Helped another YouTuber shoot a bogan themed video. Yeah. All right. You get my mullet happening? There we go. This is not actually bad Trump hair, yeah? It's a bit thicker than Trump's hair. It's like Billy Ray Cyrus hair. I'm Billy Ray Cyrus now. Yeah, for a YouTube friend was shooting a bogan themed video on the weekend, and so I had my flannelette shirt out. Which I wear flannelette shirts unironically. The mullet was ironic. That's an interesting thing. I don't know about anywhere else, but still occasionally see around Melbourne town unironic mullets. Usually young lads from the suburbs still rocking the mullet, and they're, completely proud of it. More power to them. Yeah, it's a bit too thick for Trump. Well, I grew up in country New South Wales. So I got a big bogan pedigree in my background. I could just go with this. Look at it, rocking that. My hair's coming out the side there. Oh well. So yes, one of my wigs. I have some others, but yes. So I'm drinking this stuff. It's honestly not bad. Look, okay, and I said this when I first brought it up, but fellow Australians, you are going to see this on a current affair sometime soon. I'm really sure. There'd be a big moral panic about it. Bring back the Sharpie. Ooh, I see. It's not bad. It's a brewed lemon drink. See, this is big. Why you're going to get the moral panic is this doesn't really taste like alcohol. Tiny little bit. But it tastes less like alcohol than, for instance, cider does. And there's a few different flavors. This is the first one I've tried. But it's for this type of drink, it's comparatively a high alcohol, and it's really cheap. For those who missed my summary of this, beer and cider, even slightly high alcohol, tends to be 4 or 5% alcohol. This is 8% alcohol, and this bottle is over twice the size of like your average bottle of beer or cider, and it costs the same. This costs about the same as a 500ml cider, and so it's like 4 times the alcohol for the same price, and it's very easy to drink. And so you're going to see a bunch of teenagers getting shit-faced on this, and it's going to be a big moral panic. Midday, Keiko, I'll have one for you. You can have one with lunch. Reminds me of this fantastic interview I saw probably in the 80s or the early 90s with Shane MacGowan from the Pogues. For anyone who doesn't know him, it's like a sort of pop punk rock group in the 80s, very influenced by traditional Irish music. And Shane MacGowan was a rampant alcoholic. And he was being interviewed for French TV. It was really funny. They're in a pub, and this French interviewer is talking. I think like the French interviewer has wondering if you're Mr. Stephen. No, don't drink if you're at work. Okay, I don't want to be blamed for people either drinking in the mornings or while they're at work. It's the evening and I'm at home and I'm just having a little tipple. But yeah, so Shane MacGowan's being interviewed by this guy from French TV, and the guy from French TV has like one pint in front of him, and Shane MacGowan is like all these empty long neck bottles in front of him, and he's talking to the French guy, and the French guy is like, do you drink alcohol before you go on stage? And Shane MacGowan just goes, oh yeah, I'll have 6 or 7 bottles. And the French guy just pauses and goes, did you say 6 or 7 bottles? And Shane MacGowan just laughs and goes, oh yeah, with my meal, okay? I only have it with my meal. So it's like, that makes it okay. Shane MacGowan was famous for his incredibly bad teeth that just got worse and worse over the year, and they rotted around to the point I've seen photos where all he's got is like black stumps in his gums, really gross. But he finally had dental work. Like he had his gums all cleaned up, and he's got false teeth, and he's got these huge false teeth, and like big white teeth, which is really weird if you remember what his little broken tombstone looking teeth were like. Drinking at work might keep you sane. It also might have a negative effect. Oh yeah, this is the thing. I just don't want to be held responsible for someone drinking at work. Hey, I went to a party on the weekend where I was mixing drinks. Oh, the Nick Cave EP. I've got that. Yes. Nick Cave and Shane MacGowan sing What a Wonderful World together. Yes, that's nice. It was interesting because then they sing one of each other's songs as well. And it's interesting because I'm quite a Nick Cave fan, and he sings the Pogues song Rainy Night in Soho, and that's a Pogues song that I like, but I really is not into Nick Cave's version of it. Mr. Stephen, I know you're responsible for your own life. It's not really my fault. Yeah, see, Rainy Night in Soho, it's a Pogue song I like, and I like Nick Cave, but I don't really like Nick Cave's version of Rainy Night in Soho. It just didn't do much with it. I prefer the cover Shane MacGowan did on that. But yes, I got all the old Pogues albums back in the day. I mean, it's like, so if someone saw my vinyl collection, they'd probably call me a hipster, and I'm like, no, I actually bought these when vinyl was the only way you could buy music. Like, that's how old I am. You know, I don't hang out in record stores buying vinyl. I just bought it when that was all you could buy. So, KK, words of positivity. The political situation, horrific deaths last night. Yep. No. Look, I'm a big believer in looking for positivity in these situations. And there's a line that's attributed to that guy who did the American TV show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Will Rogers. And in really awful, dark times, I think this is worth looking for, like, when bad things happen, look to the helpers. There are always people who will help and do the right things. When bad, awful things happen, often a lot of people's reaction is also bad and awful. But look to the people who are helping. Like, what happened in Manchester was horrible and horrific. But then you see the people who opened their homes. The taxi drivers who were picking people up and giving them free rides home. Just people who came together and said, when something awful like this happens, we're going to help. We're going to come together and be stronger, because what perpetrators of evil acts like this want is to divide people and make people scared, make people angry, make people retaliate. Actually reacting with love and support for your fellow humans who need it, that's how you beat violence and evil. I'm not saying show love to the perpetrators of things like that. No, you're a quick bullet behind the ear for them. I'm all in favour of that. But rather than you yourself descending into fear and hate, actually find ways to be positive, find ways to help people, find ways to support them. That is where to find the positivity in this. It's like when this ridiculous phrase got coined by George Bush, the war on terror. We're declaring war on an abstract concept, and from his cynical point of view, very good, because it's not actually, or it's not something you can't say, I just beat terror. Terror doesn't exist anymore. It's a supremely cynical exercise. But I always thought, oh, you want to win the war on terror? You want to beat terrorists? Well, refuse to be terrorized. Just don't be terrorized. Don't let these things dictate your life. Yes, bad things happen. No one wants bad things to happen, and you want to take sensible precautions, but actually letting people like this control every aspect of your life, that's how they win. That's how you lose. You lose when you let them win. And it's just ridiculous to talk about, I'm going to defeat terrorists, because one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. The reason people who engage in extreme acts of terror, the reason they get support is there are people who feel marginalized by these massive powers. And so it's like when you're under the heel of some tyranny, if someone says they're fighting for you, you suddenly feel liberated, even if they do awful things. It's like the whole thing that anarchists used to say in the early 20th century, dynamite is the great leveler in more than one way. Like, the anarchists are going, well, we don't have a government, we don't have an army, we don't have all this power, but, I can go and blow up a police station. Again, not really recommended behaviour. But when you're oppressed, doing awful things seems more justifiable. Now, the whole thing of I was just asked there about how I feel about getting rid of the stigma of terrorism being linked with a particular faith, a particular religion. We're obviously talking about Islam here. So look, while there are people using the religion of Islam as their justification for their extreme behaviour, humans are very bad at risk assessment. Because, you talk with people in Western nations, particularly America, we go, I think Islamic terrorists are going to kill me. And a small number of people are killed, and it's awful. But in terms of actually assessing the risk of what happens, and it sounds like I'm making a joke, but it's a statistical reality. You are more likely in America to be killed by a toddler with a gun than you are by an Islamic terrorist. By quite a bit. It's not like, there were 10 toddlers kill people and 9 Islamic terrorists. No. There are toddlers killing people like basically every week, a couple times a month. And you're more likely to be killed that way. And accidents, more people get killed in accidents in a day. And we're saying like the bathtub, falling off a ladder, things like more people get killed like that in a day than get killed by Islamic terrorists in a year. You know, and then once you start to get in stuff like road fatalities, illness, cancer, things like that, and let alone in America, actual gun death through violent crime, these are orders of magnitude more dangerous to you than Islamic terrorists. But you got people who say, no, a sensible thing to say is, I don't want to allow any refugees from Muslim majority countries in because they're dangerous. Even though there haven't been any fatal attacks by refugees from these countries. None. Okay? But the instant you speak up and say, I think we should have some gun control, you're crazy. You're crazy. Why are you saying that? You can't do that. I've got rights. But people doing a ridiculous punitive measure that won't make you any safer, and in fact is a brilliant recruiting tool for terrorists that makes you less safe. People go, yeah, let's do the thing that makes me less safe because I'm all about surface level, not about reality. So people are so bad at risk assessment. They don't do the things. I see we're on a run in the comments with how dangerous bathtubs are. My head's so itchy from that bloody wig. Oh. Okay, I just had to take it off. Sorry to disappoint everyone who's getting into the mullet, but it was really itchy. Yeah, put it back on. Thanks, Mega Leech. Oh dear. Yeah, no, I might put it back on, but my head's just really itchy. I need it, and it's hot. I think this is a full-on thing. It's even got the little, you probably can't see it, it's got the little clips in there to hold it in place. Oh, yeah, bathtub showers. It reminds me, there's a webcomic, I don't know who does it, but it's like two people in the surf on a beach, and like a shark fin comes along behind them, and one was going, oh no, a shark! And the other one says, don't panic, you're more likely to be killed by a cow than a shark, which is statistically very true. And he goes, okay, relax. But then it bounces up, and it's actually a cow with a fake shark fin tied to its back, and the cow jumps up and slashes the guy's throat and runs away, which, yeah, is a very odd way of representing statistical probabilities. But yes, basically, it isn't just that your chances of being killed by an Islamic terrorist is really low, that you should be more worried about other things, but it's the actions that are taken for the sake of political expediency that play on this fear that actually make you more likely, because taking these punitive actions against people who weren't ever thinking of killing you increases the risk that they're able to report from them. Yes, probably more people die from shark attacks than terrorism. You can probably find the list of things that kill people, and terrorism is way down on that list. But again, trying to be positive, because arguably I'm going down a bit hollow. You could just be killed in a second, and you could. My philosophy on that is try to be good to as many people as possible. The people who are important to you, let them know that they're important to you. Show the love. Don't be shy about doing good things for people, because ain't none of us got any guarantees. The asteroid that NASA hasn't told us about might smash into the planet tomorrow and wipe us out. We just don't know. You could get diagnosed with a fatal disease. You could get hit by a car crossing the street. You could trip and fall down some stairs and break your neck, okay? So we can't live our lives worrying about the fact that we don't control any of those things. It's take the best out of each day. Celebrate good things, share good things, be good to people who you care about. Make what time you have here as positive as you can. But because you don't know how long you've got, there are no guarantees. But we can't spend our life dwelling on that, because you'd go crazy. You would go absolutely crazy. Keiko, be excellent to each other is a fine philosophy. Bill and Ted knew what they were talking about. But, so yeah, don't dwell on things that could kill you, because there's a lot of things that can kill you. And if you really spent a lot of time thinking about how, you know, you could go like that, you'd go crazy. So just try and do what positive things you can. That's my philosophy. Because you're just here for as long as you're here, and you don't know how long that is. None of us know how long that is. So make the most of it. Make your influence on this world a positive one as much as possible. I mean, God, you be fatalistic like me. Get to my age, when you see an increasing number of people dying who are your age or younger, you know, that's really disconcerting. So, yes, Megaleech, don't spend your time worrying. That will drive you crazy. Hey, here's another thought I've had that to mess with people. Said, because most of us, we spend our time in a little bubble just in our world, because you have to just live your life in your world. If you know you let too much of the outside world impinge on you, you can't function, because there's so much out there. So to a degree, you've got to be in your own little world. But here's a little puzzle I like to put in someone, and this is possibly because my background is like Scottish Celtic, and it's an area that was regularly pillaged and attacked by Vikings, for instance. So when you think about it, no matter who you are, you only exist because other people were killed horribly. And I mean horribly. You only exist because whole villages, cities, countries were wiped out. You're the product of rape and torture. If all these people in history didn't suffer awful, terrible fates, you wouldn't exist. And that's not your fault. That's not my fault. But that is actual reality. And this is not a reason to not fight injustice, to not fight bad treatment of people around the world. I'm a big believer in fighting injustice. But you can't control the fact that terrible things created the world we're in today, both good and bad. I'm certainly not going to say there's no bad in the world, obviously. It's kind of like, you know, if you're in a relationship with someone and they tell you about bad things that happened to them before, you can't help thinking, oh, I wish I could go back in time and stop that from ever happening to you. But you can't, because we can't time travel. But also, if you changed bits in history, they wouldn't be the same person. Quite possibly you'd never meet them. While people, all of us, have bad experiences and go through bad things, they make up who we are. So it's what we do with them. Joe was saying possibly bad things are a lesson to enlighten us. Possibly they are. But we can't stop bad things from happening. We can't go back in time and take bad things away. It's what we take from them that's important. And again, that's not to philosophize like, oh, don't complain, a bad thing happens to you. Imagine what Aussie would do to and with the holodeck. I actually know him well enough to have a really disturbing insight into what Aussie would do with a holodeck. It would not be family friendly. Abigail and Keiko, we're going with a theory, what doesn't kill me makes me cynical. See, look, knowing Aussie is both a privilege and a very scary thing. So, I can't get by that. Yes, David Hill, 12 Monkeys is a great time travel film. If you've never seen it, it's one of Brad Pitt's best bits of acting because he's in an insane asylum, and when he gets out, actors who really just chew the scenery and go, whoa, I'm crazy, I feel like what Brad Pitt did really well in that movie, he didn't do the, woo, I'm crazy. He did the, I am desperately trying to just pull everything in, and little bits would break out, and it's like, instead of overdoing anything, he had little twitches, and it's like, but his whole thing was a fight. No, my whole time I'm keeping everything in, and it was really well done. Did someone talk about the Australian-made film Paradox? That is the ultimate mindfuck time travel paradox film. It takes it to an absolutely extreme degree. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but you look at what's the ultimate paradox you could put in time travel, and this film does it. It's an Australian-made film, and it's got what's his name? Ethan Hawke is in it, and it's really well made. And I think it's okay. Maybe you weren't talking about Paradox. Maybe no. I'm thinking Predestination. The film is called Predestination. You just made me think of it. I'll throw it out there. If you get the chance, see it. It's really interesting. It's a time travel sci-fi film made in Australia. The same guys have made a few sort of horror genre films. There's a good vampire one called Daybreakers that Ethan Hawke's in as well. They must like Ethan Hawke, or he must like them. But the Predestination is absolutely amazing. Yes, I think you're right about Joe Will grandfather paradox. I'm my own grandpa. The old thing that if you could go back in time and have sex with your grandmother and produce your parents, which produces you, but how is that possible? Because how can you go back in time and do it? Yeah. See, time travel paradoxes. But seriously, Predestination goes further than that, okay? It's like about the most extreme time travel paradox you could get. Just way, way, way out there. I'll kill your grandfather. Yes. How could you go back in time and kill your grandfather? Because then you wouldn't exist, so you can't go back and undo it. Yes. Okay. Everyone's going. Okay. So we just had an unfortunate insight into my psyche when you said grandfather paradox. I didn't think of going back in time and killing my grandfather. I thought of going back in time and having sex with my grandmother. So yes, okay. Now we've all learned a little bit of my psyche, and so yeah. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. My favourite use of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, like, cause Dave Tennant says that in probably his best, well, he's not even really in it much, but one of my all-time favourite Doctor Who episodes is Blink. That's where he says, time's all timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. But in the 50th anniversary show, with the war doctor, John Hurt, and he's all bitter and dark. And Matt Smith actually says, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly. And John Hurt just looks at him and goes, "What is wrong with you?" And Dave Tennant looks across and goes, "I have no idea where he gets stuff like that." And it was brilliant. I loved it. That was a really well done episode, that anniversary episode, by the way. So, Good Night Sweetheart got booted last year. I don't even know what that is. Do I like Capaldi? Yes, I do. I think he turned it into a completely different show. I thought it was amazing. And it was interesting because, of course, Capaldi played a role in an earlier episode, a Dave Tennant episode, and they actually acknowledged that in very early things like, why did I choose this face? What am I trying to remind myself of with this face? And that was really quite good. And I think it's reasonable to say Capaldi's a better actor than the other doctors were. I loved the other doctors, but I think Capaldi has a presence they don't have. I don't watch Whovians afterwards. I'm perfectly capable of talking about Doctor Who without having someone else tell me what conversation I should be having. I'm not really into that whole recap shows and podcasts and blogs and whatnot. Bill is a great companion, KK, you're absolutely right. I loved the bit, they used a little bit for it in Bill's first or second episode, but there was an extended thing they did as a teaser before the thing. It was like introducing Bill, where she and the Doctor are hiding from a Dalek, and she says some of the funniest shit. Like, she's trying to work out, what's a Dalek? What's that? And he's going like your little hate machine, and with a gun, and he goes, "Why has he got a sucker? What's that for?" And the Doctor's just thinking, "Why are you asking these questions?" She goes, "Do you think there's one at the back? He's got two suckers and he's just really hacked off because he can't shoot anything." Oh dear. So, yes, I like Capaldi. I don't know quite how to put it. I think he makes Doctor Who feel like a completely different show. I mean, there's been some up and down in the quality of the shows, but some of them have been really good. Hey Taz, you caught me literally just before I'm leaving. I'm about to sign off. I watched little bits of Quantum Leap, but only little bits of it. I was never really into that show. Yeah, sorry Taz. I'm an old man. It's like 10 o'clock now. I've got to go to bed. Got to be up for work in the morning. Yeah. Oh my god. So, okay, TV shows I'm looking out for. The one that's finally been optioned after all the talk and rumours for a couple of years. There's going to be a Judge Dredd TV series. And they're talking to Carl Urban about playing Dredd. So, I am looking forward to what comes out of that. Because the... No, Taz, I'm not that drunk. Problem is, I had my mullet wig on, and it's all kind of messed me up. See, I'll put it on before I go again. I look beautiful. I'd make such a good blonde. Yes. All right. So yeah, it's like my 80s mullet hair. I'm just gonna look at my lovely locks. There you go. I am the law. That was the one thing they didn't really give him, because I used to read the Judge Dredd comics in the 80s and 90s, And yeah, the whole thing is I am the law is a big thing. And he did say it in the movie Dredd, but it was very sort of subdued, where he's talking about the crime boss running the city block. You know, Mama's not the law, I'm the law. But the killer line was obviously when he kept saying to Judge Anderson, "Are you ready?" And she'd nervously say, he goes, "You don't look ready." And that final scene when they're doing a final showdown and she's just kicked the fuck out of someone, and they're just gearing up to go for this final battle with the crime gang, and Dredd just says to Anderson for like the third or fourth time, "Are you ready?" And she just goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, you look ready." Yeah, they've got to do a Judge Death one. Some people think that's cheesy, but I love the dark judges. They've definitely got to, whether it's another movie or the TV show, they've got to do the dark judges. Plus also the war with the Solves, East Meg 1 and 2, the Apocalypse War with, which is basically, their version of the conflict between America and Soviet Union. But yeah, some of the storylines with the Solves were really good. The Apocalypse War was pretty intense. But yes, I really hope a Judge Dredd TV series gets made, because they have storylines about so many, like they've literally got 40 years of stories they can draw from, so they never run out of stories, and they've got some really good stories. So yeah, the Cursed Earth, the Dark Judge, yes, so many good stories, like one shots and longer threads. The Angel Gang, just great stuff. Okay, I'm really glad you were here for the live chat. See, I love when I recognise your name, people who I've known from way back in the tubes, people who have interacted with over the years, and I see those usernames come up. Absolutely love it. Plus new people, love getting new people in. And this is good. Like, I'm really enjoying doing these live feeds. I really feel like there's a connection. So I think this is definitely the right thing to do tonight, because I was going to make a silly video about Trump and the orb, and about how, he's in the Illuminati now. Yeah, it is. And it's sharing. There is this real sort of, things, but I'm going to go to bed. Yes. Okay. Taking that off. Scratch my head again. Oh, good. Ira, you got in? Yes, Mega Leech. Speaking of blasts from the past. Yes. So I'm going to do more of these, and I'm doing more of my regular videos as well. If AZ gets well, we'll be seeing him again. I've been talking my friend Viola, who I made a few videos with in the past. I made videos with Viola and Eva, for those who remember. We used to do a lot of relationship and let's talk about sex type videos. And Viola and I are virtually neighbours. So she's talking about coming over and doing a live stream, maybe on Thursday night. So, and I thought, thanks, Keiko, I'm glad you like the words. I feel like, fuck, today was so shitty. That news from Manchester was so awful. And it really just brings home, wow, the world's really fucked, isn't it? Being able to just share and talk, and yeah, it's cathartic for me to have a rant, so I'm glad, Abigail, it's cathartic for you to have me ranting. Ugh. And I feel better for it, so I hope you all feel better too. And hey, if anyone's watching this back later, I hope you enjoyed it, even though it's got to be weird when I reply to comments that you can't see. In the live stream, the comments pop up. Trust me, I'm not totally talking to myself. So good night, everybody. I'll be back again soon, definitely before the end of the week. So we'll see what happens in the meantime. If something absolutely compelling pops up, I'll make a video about it. You might even see me on a live stream with Viola on Thursday. And I really enjoyed it, so I'll see you again soon. Bye.